Yeah, tonight, talking auditions, I am here with Nick Charles from Backstage.
No, stage.
Femura, Stage Door. Jeez, crap, I started out really well there. Stage Door, Femura from Long Beach Playhouse, and Kathy Palladino from every theater ever in existence. At least more than I can list, so that's good enough. And I'm letting a couple of other people in here. For those of you who are new, if questions, and please, if you have questions, send them to me in chat. I will pass them on to our directors, but we are talking about auditions tonight, and I thank everyone for being here. One of these days, auditions will actually happen again. I am absolutely convinced of it. So, use this time to prep. And hopefully, anything that comes out of this little round table will help you do that. So, I'm going to start you out with just a basic question. Steve Shane is floating around in space. I love that. Anyway, in your opinion, who gets more nervous at an audition? The people behind the table or the people in front of the table? Go.
Well, being behind the table, I would say the people behind the table, but having done both, I think it may be 50-50. I mean, when you audition, you don't realize how nerve-wracking. I know Greg and I agree with this. It's very nerve-wracking to hold auditions. The same kind of trepidation. Who's going to come? Nobody's going to come. Are they going to like me? No, they're not going to like me. So I'd say 50-50. Yeah, that's my opinion.
You agree, Nick?
Yeah, ultimately, the actors, they're only responsible for one person, them. Director, we're responsible for everybody. We have to put all the pieces together. They come in, they do their thing, and they leave. And we put all the pieces together. And that is nerve-wracking because you go in with your plan A, and then you usually have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. If nobody shows up, if 300 people show up, if too many people or not enough people. But yeah, it is, you go in hoping that somebody walks through the door and hoping the right people walk through the door.
Fee, what makes you most nervous about an audition when you're directing? You're muted again. Why do you keep doing this to yourself?
I don't know. What makes me most nervous is thinking that there's a right answer.
That's good. That's the right answer.
It's like, oh no, did I do the right thing? Did I pick the right cast? And agonizing over that is probably the thing that worries me the most. But I think you need part of that, because otherwise you don't worry at all, and then it's too complacent. So
you'll just end up casting anyone.
Right. Well, at that point, why even bother? Just first 5 people, you're in. So yeah,
it's true.
I think just worrying a lot about it is probably a thing.
I'll tell you, I mean, obviously, I always worry that I won't get the people that I need for a show. But there's also a sense of when you're an actor going to an audition, you are being judged by maybe 2-3 people. When you're a director holding an audition, you are being judged by every single actor that walks in through that door.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I always say it's always nice to see my friends who I've worked with before come and audition for me, because I know they're coming back for a reason. They like me. They like the way I work. And it's encouraging, because sometimes you just get a feeling from an actor that you really messed up with them. I don't know if the rest of you feel that way. Maybe it's just my insecurity. But I constantly am second guessing about the way I'm coming across at an audition.
Well, right. You don't want to, you want to recognize people that you've worked with before, but you don't want to overemphasize, because then people that you haven't worked with before are going to think, oh, well, they're just going to pick all their favorites.
Exactly.
You're walking that fine line. Do I pick, what I know, or do I pick somebody else and offend the people that I already know? Or do I pick the people that I know and offend the people that I don't know? And will they ever come back again? Sometimes you get somebody who shows up for the first time and then they never come back and audition for you again. And you always wonder, why it wasn't personal. It just, for this time, it didn't work out. But gosh, the next show or the show after that, they may have been perfect for, and then you never see them again.
Yeah, I think it is for the actor. I think it's important to know this because, when an actor comes in to audition for me, what I try to do is get in the space of, I really want to know this person. I really want to know who this person is. I want to connect with this person, and I want to create a relationship in that 5 minutes that we have. And I think as an actor, if you go into that the same way, knowing that that's what the director wants, we want, we're needy. We want relationships, and that's the first thing you should do, I think, in audition, is when you walk in, rather than how am I going to do, am I going to say this right, am I going to say this wrong, think, I am looking forward to meeting this person, or I'm so happy to see Greg again. I haven't seen him since the last show, and I'm real. So that's probably the best thing you can do in the first 15 seconds of the audition, or actually as you walk in the door, in my opinion.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Fee, on the continuum with talent on one end and personality on the other, where are you looking for a person to fall?
I don't know. Yeah, I think always being able to work with and communicate with someone is more important than anything. I'd rather have a good experience and create something that everyone's going to come away from proud rather than damaged. That would be ideal.
Damaged. Wow, you gave a wider continuum than I was talking about.
I don't know. I'm spitballing, Greg. I have no idea how I'm answering these questions.
How about the other two?
Okay, I think that it's so difficult when you see somebody for the first time and some people read really, really great and that's all they do. Some people don't read well at all and they grow like crazy, and it's up to us to figure that out in the 5 or 10 minutes that we see you guys. So to me, it's number one, you have to know the material. If a person comes in and I say, oh, what does Stella think about Stanley in this particular scene? And the person says, I don't know, I haven't read the script. That's done. That's done. Because even if they're a great reader, I know they aren't going to put the time in. I mean, unless you just found out about the audition and you come and then maybe, but know the script, know the character you're playing, know the backstory, know the objectives, know all of that stuff, and then put your personality on it. And I would rather have somebody make a huge mistake and commit to it than somebody who just, because I can work with that. I mean, I don't know if any of you know Jack Millis, but I directed him in Inherit the Wind, and I didn't know him at the time. And he came in and he did the part of the reporter, and he did it like Satan, and he had an apple and all this kind of stuff. And I hated it. I said, I don't want it, but I love that he chose that. And then I could tell him, well, try this and do this, and he could. And I ended up casting him because I think we all want actors who can really commit to something and then be flexible and be able to change.
I think you just sort of answered Eric's question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is your biggest pet peeve at an audition?
Yeah.
And what do you look most forward to at an audition? Anyone jump in.
Well, another one of my pet peeves, besides not knowing the script, is making excuses. Oh, I had worked so hard this day, and I was sick, and I just don't. You just walk in there and forget it and just do it. The other thing that personally I don't like, and this may differ, and I know in videos you get different views, is when you're doing a monologue, I don't want you to stare at me the entire time. And the reason is because it makes me uncomfortable. And the other reason, because in a conversation, if you watch conversations, it's like 90%, called the 90-10 rule. If you're listening, you're probably watching the person 90%. If you're talking, you are looking away, you're looking down, you're thinking, you're doing that kind of stuff. So incorporate that in your monologue or whatever it is you're doing. Make it a conversation. When you just look right at me the entire time, it's not a conversation. People don't do that. So that's, oh, the other thing, one more. If it's a side and you don't know it and you haven't memorized it, or you've been given material and you haven't memorized it, or you think you've memorized it, don't pretend that you memorized it. If you don't know it stone cold, just say, I'd much rather you use the script than try to stumble through it. Okay, I'm done.
I like those.
I'll agree with Kathy on know the material. You know, if the director has to explain the show to every person that walks in the door, you're never going to get through the auditions. And, 30 years ago, we didn't have this thing called the internet where you could literally at your fingertips look up a script and get the synopsis of the show and the breakdown of the characters. All of that information is there. That should be the actor's research going into, the director knows the show. I know the show when I'm at the auditions. I want the actors to know the show. 30 years ago, you drove into Hollywood, you bought a script, and you read it and got familiar with it, and then you went and auditioned. You remember the old time people would walk into auditions and they'd all have their own script in their hands. It's like, I've got a script, because everybody went and bought a script and read the play. Now you don't have to do that. You can go online and have all that information. Take 10, 15 minutes, read the synopsis, read the character breakdown, and you're ready to go. But don't expect to walk into the audition and have the director explain to you what the show's about.
Dee, what's your pet peeve?
Yes, stopping in the middle of whatever you're delivering and saying, "I'm sorry, can I," or whatever it is, but stopping in the middle. Yeah. What was the other part of the question?
The other part was,
it.
what do you look most forward to?
Oh, laughing. Always laughing.
That's great.
Yeah, that's the other half for me is people that are genuinely having a good time.
Yes. Yes.
I love it when people come in and they're excited to audition and they're excited to learn something and try something and be flexible. That's fun.
Yeah.
I like being surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I go into an audition as the director, I know that show. I've imagined the show, and when someone can do something at an audition that I haven't thought of, and I kind of wake up and go, "Whoa, I can steal that." That's cool. That's really exciting for me. My biggest pet peeve, it's really a two-parter. It comes during the audition if I give a direction, and many times I will give a direction in an audition that really has nothing to do with the finished product. It's just to show some kind of a change, to show that someone is directable. And there have been several times, strangely enough, none of these people have been cast in that situation, but when I have given a direction and the response has been, really? I hate that. I hate that. It's like, yeah, that's really what I want. Not on the stage. I want it now. So that's the first part of that. And the second part is when I give a direction and the person does the scene exactly the same way they did it before I gave the direction. And it's like, why did I just waste an extra 2 minutes? So that's my answer.
Well, also, if somebody has done a role before, whether they've done it once or twice or 10 times, you're in front of a new director. And you're going
with a new vision.
With a new vision and with a new cast, and all of those relationships are going to be new and different. And you may have done an amazing job in all those other productions, but if you come in thinking, I've done this, I know it, and I'm going to do it this way, you've thrown a roadblock in there, because now you're not teachable, you're not directable. I don't want to do that person's show. I'm sure you don't want somebody to come in when you're directing a show and they walk in and they go, oh, I'm going to do Nick's vision for you, Greg.
It's frustrating.
It is. It doesn't matter.
I will tell you this.
You've been fabulous. You may have been amazing in that show, but you had a different counterpart. So the relationship is going to be different. The new person may be younger or older or whatever. And all of these pieces have to fit together, and you have to be open to that. Not just come in and say, no, I've done it and I already know it. I don't need to learn it again.
I will tell you this. Normally my wife helps me with auditions, and one of her major jobs is to look through the resumes and highlight the times that someone has done the part before. And it doesn't say that I won't cast somebody who's done the part before, but they do have to work harder. I will admit they have to work harder at the audition to show me that they are directable, that they are thinking on their feet, that they're spontaneous, that it's not something that is just the way they've done it. I can't stand that.
But I'm also open if somebody says, hey, I've done this before and we did this, and can I show you? And you do it and you go, you know what? That works.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just as teachable. If somebody brings something to me and it fits, that's great. I am more than happy to do that. But just know that if it doesn't, accept that, no, I don't want to do that.
So what was your most difficult audition? Anyone can jump in with that one. It may not have been a tough show once you got it cast, but what was the most difficult audition and what made it that?
I guess, I don't know if it's difficult. One of the most amazing auditions we had, and this was actually 5 years ago, we did Les Mis. We had 140 people show up to audition. And everybody knew Les Mis. Everybody that was there knew it inside and out. There was no question. These were people that, Les Mis. But 140 people, we got through everybody. We called back 60. And the 60 that we called back, ultimately we cast 30. We could have done 2 full productions. The 60 that were there, the difficult part was letting the people go. That it was just, who do we want? I mean, we just close your eyes and pick. You could go either way. It was just getting down to that fine tuning and saying, okay, we're going to put these people together. And like I said, we could have taken the 30 that we didn't and moved that first 30 aside and done the show with that second set. But that was tough. That was really tough. We were in the wee hours of the morning casting the show because it was just, well, what about this one? Yeah, but I like, what about this one? What about this? Okay, let's come back to them. Let's move on to the next character. And it was hours and hours and hours trying to put it together. And we ended up with an amazing show.
That's a good kind of difficulty.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why I said, I don't know if it's, difficult, bad difficult or difficult that we had such wonderful choices and had to make those choices.
Kathy, do you have a difficult one?
Well,
Springs to
not a
mind?
specific one, but it's always the ones where, there's 25 in the cast and you get 15 audition. And, you just have to take a breath and that, start calling through people, to see what you do. Now you always get them, but those has happened. But it's why it's so important if you audition to make a good impression, even if you don't, get the part in that particular play, because I know you guys all keep a list of actors and this actor really impressed me, he wasn't right for this. And so you might get a call from me and say, can you do this?
Let's be honest, we keep 2 lists of actors.
We do. Yeah. But yeah, so it's when you have to really you have to, you just have to work extra hard to get a cast together. That's the difficult part.
We've got a bunch of questions coming in, but Fee, I want to know about you.
I don't think I have a different answer from either of them.
It's either too many or not enough. Right?
Yeah.
The life of a director.
Yeah, we're never satisfied. I got to say, going back to when I first met Mr. Piscatelli there on the screen, I had a similar problem as you did, Nick. I was doing A Few Good Men, and there were close to 200 auditioners. It was the biggest audition that I had to date. This was years ago. And of course, the vast majority of them were men, and I needed to cast mostly men. And it makes it really, really hard when pretty much you've got a bunch of people who need to be military men, and you could put them into a variety of roles. So it starts being one of those little slidey block puzzle things that you're working with. And that was a very long audition. Good questions. Boy, these are such good questions. Okay. I love this one because this is actually something I want to talk about at a future roundtable. The question is, how much physicality comes into play for auditions? In other words, if someone looks the part but is not as talented, will you cast them over someone who has more talent but doesn't necessarily look right for the part? And I'm going to add in what my upcoming subject is going to be. How do you feel about, for lack of a better term, colorblind casting or non-traditional casting?
Well, I think, especially nowadays, untraditional casting and colorblind casting is something we should all do at all times. And I've always kind of done that. I mean, when I did All My Sons, I cast an Asian in the part of the girlfriend, which was unusual, but she was by far the best. Now, I will look at age, and I will look at sometimes physical type. But otherwise, I'm kind of like you, Greg, where I want to be surprised about someone coming in. But it does play a part in casting, definitely. Definitely.
I think it also depends on if you're doing a straight play or if you're doing a musical. You know, if the
Good point.
role is musically challenging and you need the voice,
Yeah.
you're going to go with the talent versus the physicality. I got to have the voice. You know, if it's a real high tenor, I got to have the tenor. Sorry, you know, the baritone is perfect, looks just like whoever originated the role on Broadway and did it for 4,000 performances, but doesn't have the voice. I got to go with the voice. You have a little bit more room, wiggle room, if it's a non-musical.
See?
Yeah, it comes down to the message of the show, the content of the show, and what I'm going for. But I'm always interested in looking at stories in a new way. So I think that's an exciting part of is being able to be flexible in your vision of what you want to see.
And I'll chime in. I'm always looking, I agree with Fee. I like to look for different choices to make. I think where my line is, as far as cutting off, is by casting non-traditionally, is it going to make the actor have to work harder to convince the audience of their particular character? In other words, I'm all for casting a traditionally white family as a traditionally black family, but I have a really hard time mixing races in a family where you can't justify it.
You see, I don't have a problem with that.
See,
They do it on Broadway all the time.
I know, and sometimes
don't
it
have a-
works and sometimes it doesn't. But I do think that if a family looks like a family, or if you can justify it, I mean, if it doesn't matter. I mean, as far as, you know, mixed race couples, great, you know, changing, I mean, I cast, when I did Peter and the Starcatcher, my Smee was a young black woman who was playing Smee, you know, so that I don't mind anything like that. I look for that. I love that kind of thing. But I do think that the first impression that an audience sees helps cement the character. And if the actor has to work harder just to convince them, I don't think that's fair for anyone.
Well, yeah, if you have to create a second backstory to justify what you did, you know, people come in and say, well, why did they do that? Well, that could have happened because of this and this and this. Well,
Yep.
yeah, now you're outside the script. Now you're inventing something to justify. If you have to justify what you've done to the audience.
Yeah. And I think there are plenty of plays that allow for, boy, you can cast it anyway.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
I have a completely opposite. I think it's our duty as theater people to shake up people's thoughts and boundaries and create a family that doesn't look like a normal family. And let people be uncomfortable with that for the first 10 or 15 minutes until they settle back in and go, oh, that's okay. You know, but I mean, you do have, especially in Orange County audiences that are conservative and older, you do have people who it takes them a long time or never to get there. But I think it's an important thing to do.
That's interesting.
To shake up those thoughts, those prejudices that we have, and those things that we have. You know?
I do think it's really important to continually look for those opportunities. Mm-hmm. I mean, first of all, just to encourage people who are not the typical casting choices to show up, because that's, especially in Orange County, it's tough.
That's what I'm saying. This is all a conversation because we live in Orange County. So
yeah, it's like, you know, you casting the white guy or the whiter guy.
And then that's the other thing is, if you want to go, if your idea is to go, you know, if you're saying, I'm going to go non-traditional with this show, and everybody that shows up is traditional.
Yeah, well, then you have to go traditional.
Now, now are you
Then
going,
you're really, yeah, then you're really messed up.
right? So now do you just decide, well, I'm not going to do, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to have more auditions. I'm going to, you know.
No, I just, before we closed, was going to do Silent Sky at Costa Mesa. And I had wanted it to be a completely cross-ethnic, multi-ethnic cast. And I had reached out to people, and I mean, I really wanted that for the vision, and they just didn't show up and weren't interested. So it's a traditional cast.
That's super disappointing when that happens.
Yeah.
Really?
No, it's okay. You know, it happens. You know, they weren't, you know, two of them, they just couldn't do it at the time. And, you know, but I know Michael Cerna is doing Streetcar at Costa Mesa after the Silent Sky. And he has it multiracial across the board. And that was it. So, you know.
Do they know, does Costa Mesa know when we come back, when that's going to be?
It won't be.
Because I'm doing it, and mine was, you know, theirs was scheduled for like right about now.
No way. No, they won't do it until they can go back 100%.
No, I understand that. I'm just asking if when they come back, because the rights are so rarely available, and I knew they were doing it, and I got the rights, but I put mine at the very end of the year.
Yeah,
so now I'm going to be
a whole
looking
new
at,
problem.
right, are we both going to be landing in March with them?
No, probably. Well, if you open with Streetcar, it'd be okay, because we're doing Silent Sky first and then Streetcar. So that might work. Problems, yeah.
Because my Streetcar was supposed to be in November. I figured it was far enough away from everybody. But I've put in for it for so many years and been turned down. That when it came available, I said, I don't care if 20 theaters are doing it. I'm doing it. Otherwise, it's going to be another 10 years.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yep. By the way, the other part of that question, I do want to address someone who has more talent but doesn't look right. If someone has got a whole lot of talent and they go against what I picture as the part, I will rack my to try to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, talent wins out. I mean, talent and the personality, as far as I'm concerned. Great question. You're trying to get us to admit that we lie. I was told that if you get a callback, you did your job. Then a lot of it is out of the actor's control. Is there truth in that? I love that question. I will tell you this. I say that at every callback. And a great deal of it is true. The people that make a big mistake are the ones that think that they don't have to try anymore. But, you know, if I call you back, that means I can conceivably cast you. But if someone knocks it out of the park at callbacks more than you do, they've earned the part.
I had a situation recently where I was accused of pre-casting because I didn't call back a particular person. And they said, well, I always bring my A game to the callbacks. Well, maybe if you brought your A game to the audition, you would have been called back. But the callback is not necessarily for the benefit of the actor. It's for the director. The actor, you have your audition at the audition. Now, if the director sees 2 or 3 people that did amazing at that audition, the director calls them back for themselves. I'm bringing you back so that I can spend more time with you individually now, and then I can pick, you know, a better choice to pick which one of you I want. But if you're lackluster and you're waiting for the callback to throw your A game, I'm not waiting for your A game to come down the line. I want your A game now.
Kathy?
What was the question?
I
I'm so involved in what Nick said. I forgot the question.
I know. It's fascinating. Basically, if you get a call back, many directors, including me, say, okay, you did your job. Now it's up to me to figure
Yeah, that's it. Because at that point, I'm fitting people together. Or sometimes it's something I see in somebody. That's where you need to bring your personality. I had one guy in Bonnie and Clyde. He auditioned, he sang, and he was off key the entire time he sang. But there was something I absolutely loved about him. And I called him back, and I ended up casting him as Buck, the brother, and have worked with him in 3 other shows. But yeah, so it's fitting together, but it's also seeing you again and giving you a chance to, wow me again and connect again. So that's kind of it. Yeah. But by the way, that was an example. I think Fee said it, where don't stop in the middle of what you're doing in an audition. He did not stop. He just kept singing off the entire time. He was like 3 notes down, but he kept going, and he did it great, and ended up casting him. So there you go.
Hey, do you?
Yeah, you certainly did a majority of the work by getting into the callback. But yeah, it's important not to get complacent. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I think a little pat on the back is always good as an actor to be like, okay, I did what I did, and now I get a chance to. So hopefully, I think the goal of that might be to just relax the actors a little bit so that they can open up to have a little bit more fun if they're super neurotic. But if it's really ego based and you're just like, oh well, now I'm all good, then that's not going to help you. That mentality anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. How about just going back to callbacks? How often do you have a show primarily cast going into callbacks? In other words, how much of callbacks is just fine-tuning what you think, the way you think you're going to go, and how much is just, oh, now let me put it all together?
Right. I think it depends on the size of the cast, first of all. I mean, if it's a cast of 5 people, I will pretty much have a list of a few people I want. But I'm always surprised. Always things change. If it's Titanic and I'm casting 50 people, I have no idea what I'm doing. So all bets are off on that. Yeah. So it just depends on that. But yeah, I think I like to organize my thoughts before going into callbacks and make 2 or 3 casting lists that I like, and then just see if that works.
Nick?
Well, yeah, that's, again, it's piecing things together. And again, I go back a little bit different for a musical versus a non-musical. But with a musical, if you've got somebody that auditioned at 7 o'clock, and then you had somebody else that comes in and auditions at 8:30, rather than keep that person at 7 o'clock all night, you let them go, but you're going to bring them back. And now you bring them back with somebody else from later in the evening, and now you pair those 2 people together vocally to sing opposite, to see if the voices blend, if there's a connection there. So it's piecing things together. You may have seen all these scattered pieces at the first audition, but now you need to narrow it down and see, is this person going to sound right next to this person? Is there going to be a connection there? Is there maybe some chemistry between the 2 actors that you can expand on if you cast them? So yeah, if you have your mind set up before the callback, there really is no point in doing the callback.
I agree.
Why bring people back just for the sake of saying, well, you came back again, when you know that certain people you're not going to cast?
Yeah.
Just don't bring them back. Just cast the show.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't say that I have a solid idea of who I'm going to cast before the callback in general. I don't think that's happened to me before.
Yeah, what I normally do is I will have basically a spreadsheet, whether it's just scratched out on a piece of paper or not, with the characters and any person I think might fit into that character. And then as we go through callbacks, I'm just kind of saying, okay, no. And then, of course, you get to the point where you've scratched out all of the names under that character. And you have to start really shuffling things around. But yeah, just the long and short of it is that it really is true. You have done the bulk of your work to get to the audition, and then it's time to have fun. And the more fun you have, the more chance you have of getting cast.
And again, you can take the time at the callback that you couldn't take at the first one, because now you're working with a smaller group of people, and you can say, okay, let's try it this way. We'll switch. Now let's try it this way. We'll switch again. Now let's try it this way. Or let's try this. Let's try that. Whereas if you've got a lobby full of people, you're not going to want to spend that much time and have everybody sitting out there waiting and waiting and waiting while you play.
Right. Okay, here we go. Oh my God. A couple showed up and I wasn't looking. Oh.
Oh no.
Here's a question that has nothing to do with casting, but I'll throw it in here. How does a director who does the same play multiple times, even years apart, keep it fresh and new for themselves? Or do they put on the same staging of the play again and again? And do you change the casting?
Yeah, I don't like to do shows over and over again.
I don't either.
Sometimes you do, but I don't.
I do. Certain shows that are right here, I love, and I love to do them. But you have, again, it's like when I go back to talking about an actor who has done the role for another director in another theater at a different time. It's the same thing. If I'm doing the show again, I'm not going to be doing the same show because I have a different cast.
Yes.
If I wanted to do the same show, I would call up all the same people and I would bring them all back and tell them to bring back their script with all their blocking in it and say, well, there you go. Learn it again. Let's just do it. But that doesn't happen. So you have a whole new cast, you have whole new relationships, and you pretty much start over again. And you learn. I'm constantly learning things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been doing this for almost 50 years and I am constantly learning something. You know, every time I go in, I learn something new with the show. You know, something that just comes out of rehearsal and you go, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought of that. Whatever you just did, do it again.
I think the difficulty with doing a show, and I've repeated shows before. It can be, at least from the way what I do, it can be almost unfair to the actors because I already have. Usually, I'm doing the show because I love the show, and I have a preconceived idea that I try to get out of my head, but I can't. So the first couple rehearsals, it's like, no. And then, you know, it's like I expect too much of the actors before they're willing to do it. And I find that if I just have to be a blank slate, and that's sometimes hard. So if you do a show that a director has already done, you might, for some of us directors, you might run into that problem of, oh my gosh, she expects so much of me, or, you know, I'm not doing it this way or that way. Yeah. But that may just be me.
Yeah.
I think that is hard to keep open-minded when you have something really in the head. That's something that I've struggled against. Nick, I was wondering if there's a specific time or show, a moment that you could share with us that was kind of like you were describing where I hadn't thought of that. Is there one from one of the shows that you love and you've redirected?
So many. I don't know if I could pinpoint. I've done so much. I just know that
Did it ever make you think of the show differently?
I don't know if it made me think of the show differently, just something that we had staged a certain way, and then something happened during rehearsal or whatever, and all of a sudden it was just like a moment, and you went,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that, I don't know if I can pinpoint something like that, but I just know when it happens, where
Yeah.
they have been rehearsing something a certain way a few times, and then, something happened and somebody forgot what they were supposed to do and did something completely different because they were on the wrong side of the stage or whatever. And you go, whoa, stop. My gosh, why didn't we think of that, making that entrance over there instead of over there? And it fits better that way.
Okay,
I don't know if
cool.
I can pinpoint. I'd have to really sit down and think of.
Yeah. I put you on the spot, but I was excited to hear if you had.
I'm old. I don't remember a lot.
No, I agree. It's I try not to direct a show more than once. There have been a couple of shows that I have because exactly what you're saying. I love them so much, and they were so much fun. And I don't know. I don't know that I've ever repeated a show where the second time through I said, I'm so glad I did that. Because maybe it was as good as the first one, but it probably wasn't, because after I did it the second time, I had no urge to do it a third.
What about this? Flip that coin. What if you did a show and you had, your vision, everything, and it just didn't ever get to that? And you go,
I can see that.
I really want to do that show. And you do it again to fix what you didn't do.
Yes, I can
time
see
before.
that. I can see that. Yeah. That's a possibility. But yeah, the idea of going back to the question, I think we all agree, the idea of going in and trying to recreate a production is
Yeah.
never really the
Absolutely.
goal.
I'll
No,
say this. The second time I directed Noises Off, Head and Shoulders better and more fun than the first time I did.
Oh, good. That's got to be what happens with mine.
Yeah. I mean, well,
I'm kidding, Eric. I'm kidding.
First off, we did not have the ability, and not to say that the first time we did it wasn't a bad production. It was just technically not what I wanted. Obviously, with the show, it's a 2-story set and it turns, and we just weren't able to do that because of the height of the theater. So we devised the set in a way that it was in 3 sections. And at intermission, when the whole thing had to be turned around, the opening night, it took 20 minutes to get everything. By the time intermission was done, we were ready to start. By closing weekend, that set change was done in 6 minutes. Everything, it just moved. Everybody knew which way to pull and turn. And it was like a puzzle that came apart, and this section had to go upstage and this section had to go downstage left. And then this section came over, and then you had to turn this one around and come back and piece it all together the other way. Then you had to reset all the furniture.
Nick, I've unmuted Eric. Eric, do you want to share how long it took us to change our set?
Well, I think you had budgeted it when we came to run it. You were hoping it could be in, I think you said 10 to 12 minutes.
I think 7 minutes was my goal.
And I think we did it in 3.
Whoa.
Yeah, it
Wow.
was amazing.
It was amazing.
It really
was
was.
amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Now, was it a single unit set that just turned?
No,
or
it was five pieces.
Yeah, ours was 3 pieces. And
5 pieces.
It's one thing taking it all apart and then going back and having to line it up and get the pegs in so that it doesn't come apart while they're running up and down the stairs.
Yeah.
Or the doors actually stay closed.
Yes. But the second time I did it, we had the height, we had the ability to have the whole thing on a single turntable. And the show
cool.
just was technically so much better. And I'm so glad that I did it, because then I sat back and went, okay, now I'm happy with the technical aspects of that show, because that's the other character.
Yep.
in that show.
Absolutely.
Is that set?
Absolutely. Okay. This is one of my favorites. I talk about this all the time, so this is a good question. Is there a better position for an actor to audition in? In other words, first night at the beginning of auditions, later in the first night, second night of auditions? What are your opinions?
For me, it really doesn't matter. Just don't, if the auditions go till 9 o'clock, just don't get there at 8:58.
Oh, I hate that.
But I know some people like to come, they think it's better the second day. It really doesn't make a difference to me. Maybe because on the first day I'll go through and I'll look at the people and I go, okay, I'm calling these people back, and I call these people back. And then the second day, maybe I'm more critical the second day. I don't know. Some people it's the other way around, I'm sure.
Well, it also, if you have 2 days and the first day if everybody in their mindset is saying, well, I'm not going to go to the first day, I'll go on the second day. So the first day you have 5 people show up and you're like, oh my gosh, plan B. What am I going to do if nobody shows up? And then the second night you have all these people that show up on the second night. Or you have a ton of people that show up on the first night, and then the second night, 2 people walk in the door. So you have to be open, both one versus the other.
As an actor, I always like to do it right away and get it over with, so I didn't have to think about it. I think it's just a personal feeling for the actor. As a director, it really doesn't make a difference to me.
Yeah.
I'm usually more fresh the first day, so I think it's better for people to come earlier for me.
When I'm acting, I've always said I want to be the first one in. I want to set the bar. Let everyone else come up to my standard. And as a director, what you were saying, Kathy, I think I'll call back more people from the first night, just because the second night I'll be saying, okay, I have 3 people already that could play that part. This person was okay, but no better than any of them. So whereas the first night I'm kind of saying, okay, this is a real possibility. This person's a real possibility. The second night they're okay. They're not bad.
You kind of have to work harder.
You have to work harder the second night.
Yeah.
So yeah, but also, if I sit around too late in the lobby thinking about what I'm going to do, I inevitably screw up as an actor. So it's much better if I just walk in off the street and walk straight in. So I would personally, suggest early. Be there first.
And I understand that if there are a lot of people there and you're doing it first come, first serve, that you may be there for a long time. I typically don't like to put down an end time on auditions, like we'll be there from 7 to 9, because if 3 people show up and you're done by 7:30, I just don't feel like sitting around for an hour and a half. I may sit there for another 30 minutes or 40 minutes waiting, but if I'm not going to sit for another hour hoping that somebody comes in at 8:58. Now at that point, I'm tired. I don't want to be there. And then, somebody comes strolling in the door saying, well, you said you'd be here till 9. So you put down, we start at 6:30 or we start at 7 o'clock, get there early, and we'll get through everybody as quickly as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how late I'm going to go. If I have 3 people, I'm going to get out of here pretty fast. If I have 40 people, it's going to take some time.
I will give the caveat. There have been plenty of times I've cast people who are a couple of the last people I saw audition.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, you don't know.
You don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a guarantee in any way. But
I will say, same thing happened to me. I cast a show the first time I did Nonsense. And we were done with auditions. We were packing up and everything, and I was getting ready to walk out the door. and a gal showed up. As it turned out, her husband was her accompanist. And so she said, you know, he play my music. We said, okay, come on in. She came in, set up the music. He played for her. I cast her. And if I'd have left 5 minutes earlier, I wouldn't have seen her.
Here's a great story. Do you all know Jay Fraley?
No.
Or know Jay Fraley? He hasn't been in the area for a long. Very, very, very good actor. The first time he auditioned for me, I was doing Barefoot in the Park. Report. He showed up the very last person. He came in, and my immediate, the hair on my neck bristled. I was so pissed off because I was literally packing things up. And he came in, and he did, I gotta say, pretty much everything wrong. He gave me excuses. But it was a good excuse. He literally got on stage, said, "I'm really sorry I'm this late. I had hemorrhoid surgery today." And I thought, wow, here's a guy that's telling me he had hemorrhoid surgery. This is impressive. And then he blew me away in the audition. He was just perfect. And I ended up casting him, and then ended up casting him several times after that. But so yes, the key is there really is no guarantee of doing anything right or anything wrong at an audition. It all comes down to chance when it comes right down to it. It's, are you right at that moment with the rest of the mix, and you're not doing anything so grievously wrong that the director simply has a feeling that you will be hell on earth in the show.
Again, if you bring your A game to the first audition, whether it's
Yeah.
the first night or the second night, you bring your A game. Don't come in and say, "Oh, sorry, I'll do much better at callback." You're already assuming that you're going to be called back. Don't
Yeah.
assume that. Assume that you have to hit it out of the park at that first audition to be asked to come back a second time.
And it has nothing to do with being better than anyone else at the audition. It's just you can be. Because it's all self-competition. You can't compete with the other people at the audition.
Compete with yourself. Always do better the next time out.
It's a lovely question. And I don't want to end with this question. It's so negative. Okay. Veronica wants to know, have you ever had to fire an actor because of them causing a lot of drama and sowing divide within the cast and crew? What happened? I think it's safe to say we've all fired actors.
Okay, I never have, but I should have. Because if you think there's a problem and you think you can work through it, you can't. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So twice, and I should have gotten rid of them right away. Not right away, like halfway through. It just, Yep. So I haven't, but I should have.
Nick?
No
names. No names.
No, yeah, my wife is over there going, waving at me. There have been times where I have had to let somebody go. It's always a very difficult decision to make. It is extremely difficult because you have to weigh out, is it, like Kathy said, is it something that is going to fix itself as we go? But the other thing that you have to worry about is there going to be a ripple effect? If you let this person go, how many people are they going to take with them when they leave? Because I've seen that happen. I've talked to directors that let somebody go and 4 people walked out with them. So now there were 5 people that had to be replaced. And if you're doing that halfway through or 3/4 of the way through rehearsals, are you setting yourself up to have to postpone the opening of the show? And then what's that going to do to the morale of the cast for the rest? So you really have to know your cast. Is it going to lift the morale to get rid of that bad seed, or is it going to cause more trouble and, you know, by letting them go? But I have had to let people go more so in the last year than ever before.
Oh,
I've been very fortunate, but in the last year I've had situations where I just said, I just can't let this keep going. One instance was somebody was drinking.
Oh.
And that was just instant. It was just, but then there was somebody like a week later in the same cast for something else. And it was like, oh Lord, what am I going to do to this cast? But I could not let them go. I had to, because it was a situation with other cast members. It's tough. You have to make that decision and you flip that coin. Is it going to be better or is it going to be worse? And I've had cases where I've talked to
young
members
you done it?
and said, I brought them in and said, if I let this person go, do you have a feel? Is that going to affect you? Is that how, if I keep this person, how is that going to affect you? You play opposite them, not an easy decision.
No.
Mhm.
Have you ever had to, Fee?
I can't remember if they left or if I had to let them go. I can't quite remember.
You blocked it out of your mind.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
But
It's rarely a good-
ultimately, I always believe that whatever is meant to happen, and something shakes out for the show, and it comes around. Show goes up.
Yeah,
What are you
it's
saying?
never easy. And I'll tell you, it's never easy, I think, for volunteers. The concept of firing a volunteer is a really bizarre concept. I mean, it's like, we're not even paying you. It's kind of weird to have to fire you.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I've had to do it a couple of times. And the couple of times, and I'm very hesitant about doing it. I hate, number one, I hate conflict. But the 2 times I've actually had to fire somebody, it has notably improved the morale of the show. So I lucked out. But yeah, painful, difficult. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up with Eric's final question because it's perfect. What 1-sentence piece of advice can you give to actors to help with self-consciousness at auditions?
Have fun.
Let's start with Fee. No, let's start with Fee. I'm going to make her go first.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Oh, 1 sentence. Well, it was a sentence I heard uttered at an audition that I went to as an actor, which I always think of. It makes me smile, and every time I go to an audition, I think of it, and I love it. So I was at an audition. The stage manager came out. She called someone's name, and from the corner of the room, I heard, "Oh God, I mean confidence." And then he went in. He took a moment. He said, "I mean confidence," and he went into the audition. I was like, "Oh, yes." So
That's great. Kathy?
Have fun, enjoy the process, and attempt to get out of your ego and focus on the people that are behind the panel, behind the table. And as a person behind the table, I try to get out of my ego and focus on you. And then then it's not a judging thing. It's like a communication between 2 people, and let's just see where it goes.
Nick?
More than 1 sentence, sorry.
I would add to that. I would say that
1 sentence. It was a run-on, but it was 1 sentence.
we're all in this to do the best production we can possibly do. A director doesn't go into a show thinking, I want to do a lousy job. And an actor doesn't go to an audition saying, I want to be in a lousy show. So we're all there for the same goal. to be the best we can be. So relax. First and foremost, just relax. Relax and go in and be open. Just, you know,
And I will
try to leave all that baggage outside, whatever happened during the day, whatever, relax, come in and be open to have a fun experience and go for the goal.
I will close this with my own. You're an actor, presumably because you love to act. And this is a 2-minute opportunity that no one can stop you from acting. So just go in and have a chance to act. That's it. Just no goal. Just go in and give a wonderful performance because you know you can do that. And if that pays off by giving you a part, great. And if not, you walked out by being given a chance to perform. And you can't get upset about that. All right. Well, we went over, but I like going over. Nick, Kathy, Fee, thank you for being here tonight. All of you that have been here, boy, it's so nice to see some faces.
Yay.
Steve, how's the desert? Everything good in the desert? Oh, you're back in Long Beach. What the hell? What am I saying? You moved back. Everything's, the last year is gone. Anyway, Eric, nice to know you're here. Adriana, Julie, nice seeing you. All of you, thanks for being here. Next week, we'll be talking about something else with some other people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I guess that's it.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye,
you.
everybody. Stay healthy.
You too. Thank you.